We need to purposefully set into spaces and make them inclusive and sit in the discomfort of what we don't understand and know long enough to build relationship with people that are different than us.
Welcome to the Jesus Storybook Bible Podcast, a place where we remind you that grace can rewrite any story, that hope shines a light through our darkest moments, and that God's love changes lives. Here's your host, New York Times bestselling author, Sally Lloyd Jones.
Hello, I'm Sally Lloyd Jones, author of the Jesus Storybook Bible, which tells the story of God's never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. Welcome to the show. As we all emerged out of lockdown, we saw things in a new way, didn't we? We started to treasure things we hardly noticed before. We delighted in things. And it's almost as if the pandemic gave us a new set of eyes. Our guest today helps us see with new eyes. 4 years ago, things did not go exactly the way Rachael Prescott and her husband had planned. There were medical issues with her pregnancy, ultrasounds, heart defects, and then the other news. Her babies would be born with Down syndrome. And all along the way, at every step, God reminded her He was in control. Rachael shares the profound truths she learned and how it was her twin daughters, Nettie and Lottie, who were her teachers. Nettie and Lottie taught her how beautiful the world can be when we create space for those with different abilities. Her daughters taught her to see with new eyes, the way God sees, and they brought with them the gift of joy. Rachael is the brains behind Doubling Down Mum, where she shares the journey of her family as they navigate parenting, and she shares, among other things, quote, a heap ton of happiness, end quote. Rachael's twin daughters, Nettie and Lottie, are now 3-year-olds, sassy 3-year-olds, filled with a joy and a light that they alone can bring into the world. Nettie and Lottie are part of God bringing goodness into the world He loves. How beautiful. It's a powerful message of joy Rachael shares with us. Things may not go the way we planned, but we aren't in control, God is, and He can use every single person for good. I know you'll be as encouraged as I was by hearing what Rachael has to say. Without further ado, please welcome my friend, and now yours, Rachael Prescott.
We went to have our third child and were surprised with twins, which a lot of people have, but for some reason that totally freaked me out. The idea of having 2 babies instead of 1 kind of like set me back because I realized that it wasn't going to be exactly the way that I had planned the whole pregnancy to go. And God really took that opportunity to shift my thinking and remind me that He is in control, not me. And that was the biggest blessing right there because as our pregnancy continued, we realized there were a lot of other factors coming in that were not foreseen. For example, we had gone to our first maternal fetal medicine ultrasound, which is standard for multiples. And they found that our babies each had a heart defect. But at that moment, the specialist that we were seeing that day was really concerned with the fact that one of our baby's heart defects is associated to Down syndrome. The specialist kept bringing up this association to Down syndrome and giving us pamphlets on our options to terminate, a lot of comments like, do you know what you'd be getting into if you continue? A lot of probabilities of other health things associated to Down syndrome, all negative. I'm so thankful that Cody and I, were on the same page from the beginning that the possibility of our children having Down syndrome was not something that derailed us. That's kind of where our story began, was that moment, like the reality of how far we need to come to bring some truth back into this narrative, especially starting straight from a diagnosis and then into every other area of the world and our perceptions of view people and treat people with any disability. And even our girls now at age 3, they're amazing, sassy as all get out, and determined and very busy and quick, keeping me on my toes. I think the boys are probably the most fun to watch because I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my sons are smitten with their little sisters. And that's just one of those unexpected joys right there. Just yesterday, Easton told me, he said, I am really excited to have kids. Oh, really? Why? He said, because I think Nettie and Lottie will be the best aunts ever. It's really fun to see the boys and just how passionately they love the girls and how simply they view them, just with that child's perspective. There's not any of the gunk that a lot of adults develop later on with stereotypes, and it's beautiful and very pure. We tend to be afraid of things that we don't know or understand. And so it's that pair, that ignorance and fear joining up together, that are really just stripping us of a huge community of joy, ultimately, that I think brings light to our world in a way that it would be a dimmer place without these people. Move away from that to move forward out of this trend. I think what needs to happen is we need to purposefully set into spaces and make them inclusive, bring people in and sit in the discomfort of what we don't understand and know long enough to build relationship with people that are different than us, cognitively, in our physical development, in all the ways, and diversify there, so that once we have built these relationships and we have shared experiences, that we can understand those people and then appreciate them. I think probably first and foremost, just modeling for your child, which has a lot to do with your own social circles, and making the effort to make sure there are people with different abilities that come to your table and are at your church and attend your school, and having conversations with your children, letting them ask questions, becoming just more informed. Social media is a great area to connect with people that you wouldn't have exposure to naturally. And it's a good way for people to be able to talk to their kids and say, do you notice anything different here? Do you see this person uses a wheelchair? Do you see this person has an NG tube? Do you have a question about that? And that kind of helps your child not be scared to notice those differences and not to chalk up differences into something negative or weird, Also, it makes it something that they connect to. So then in the future, hopefully, as your child goes out into their classroom or the park or the playground, they don't see someone with Down syndrome and point and ask those questions right there, which could be uncomfortable for everyone. But instead, they could know, and they could see that as just, a beautiful thing, as it should be viewed, because of conversations at home already taking place. As parents, we're in control of our schedule. And so to just let your children watch you make that effort and model how to be inclusive is a huge thing. This is the Son of Laughter from the Jesus Storybook Bible. God was going to rescue the world through Abraham's family. One of his great-great-great-grandchildren would be the child, the promised one, the rescuer. But it's too wonderful, Abraham said. How can it be true? Is anything too good to be true? God asked. Is anything too wonderful for me? So Abraham trusted what God said more than what his eyes could see, and he believed. Now, when Abraham's wife Sarah heard God's promise, she just laughed to herself. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It had tears in it. She'd always wanted a baby. Could her dream come true? Could she really have a baby when she was 90 years old? No, of course not. Don't be silly. It was far too late. Sarah didn't believe God could do what he promised. She had forgotten that when God says something, it's as good as done. Of course, it was as easy for God to give her a baby son as it was for him to make all the stars in the sky. Sure enough, 9 months later, just as God had promised, Sarah gave birth to a baby boy. They named him Isaac, which means son of laughter, and Sarah laughed. But this time, it was a glorious, happy laugh. Her dream had come true. God would do as he promised. He would always look after Abraham's family, his special people. And one day, God would send another baby, a baby promised to a girl who didn't even have a husband. But this baby would bring laughter to the whole world. This baby would be everyone's dream come true. When we had just gotten out of the NICU with the girls, and I was home with, twins and my other children, it was a lot of sitting on the floor and reading. Sitting on the floor, reading to children and pumping and feeding children, And I read that story, that exact passage in the Jesus Storybook Bible, and I was reading it to Easton and Hudson, and I had Nettie and Lottie in my lap feeding them. I wonder about Sarah in this story and Isaac, and she was older. She was an older mom, and a lot of times being a parent that's older, you have higher chances of having a child with Down syndrome. And I thought about the possibility of Isaac having Down syndrome in that moment. But it just gives me that inside warm feeling to think that God's going to use my daughters and other people with Down syndrome in this world in ways that are going to be pivotal to sharing his goodness. I love this passage, and I can't wait to ask God about it later.
You can get the Jesus Storybook Bible wherever books are sold. To find out more about the book and all of Sally's other books, please visit Sally at sallylloyd-jones.com and follow her on Instagram at Sally Lloyd Jones and at Jesus_Storybook_Bible.
Before we go, don't forget, God loves you with a never-stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. Oh, hello, it's me again, Sally. I'm just popping back briefly to say two things. The first thing is, don't forget to subscribe to the show, because that way you'll get the stories straight to your phone. And the other thing is, while we're at it, would you rate the show and leave us a review? That would be so great, because it helps other people find the show too. I really appreciate your help. Thank you.